Hi, and a warm welcome to the Bright podcast. We're a Brighton-based company specialising in digital asset management, working with over 800 global clients, including ITV, Amnesty International and the Royal Shakespeare Company. My name's Emma, and today I'm chatting to Vic Heyward, who recently embarked on a brand mission within Bright. It's a big job to get right, so we thought we'd pick her brains and see just how she went about the task. Hello, Vic.
Well, hello.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So, first off, tell me a little bit about your role here at Bright.
Yeah, I've been working at Bright for 4 years now. When I initially joined the company, we were called Bright Interactive. That's why we've gone sort of through this rebrand and we've got to the point where we are now, Bright. I wear a lot of hats in the company. It's been great, actually. When I started working at the company, I joined their customer support team, working in more of a client services capacity. But because of the opportunities here, I managed to sort of work my way into doing marketing because I had a real interest in that. Yeah, since joining, I've now moved myself into being their marketing and communications manager, which encompasses quite a lot of things. Content strategy is a real big one for me. Our corporate brand, that's our brand visuals, the website, that sort of stuff. Our employer brand as well. So that's more around focusing on attracting and retaining talent within the company. Events management, so big marketing expos, that sort of thing, and organising stands, designing stuff. Sponsorship and general, I suppose, internal and external communications. So it's just quite a huge list of stuff, really, when I read it back to myself.
Yeah, it sounds like a small job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not busy at all.
Not busy at all. I mean, most of the time I'm just sitting around drinking coffee.
Wonderful. So, on I suppose we want to know a little bit and a bit curious about how, you know, who you are, how you start your day. Let's start off with that. I mean, are you a green juice, jump out of bed person, or do you literally drag yourself out and grab a coffee?
I'm formally the latter, absolutely. Well, my husband gets up at stupid o'clock in the morning. He works in Brighton as well, but he just decides to get up very early. So I tend to do the same thing. I roll out of bed, makeup on. Let's get to work.
You are always very, put together. I can't believe you just roll out of bed.
Yeah, it takes quite a bit of work. I mean, I'm in the bathroom for quite some time. When I say get up early, I mean I get up really, really early. But yeah, I tend to come to work and I tend to get in about 7 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, wow.
So before everyone else, I sort of open up the office, put on music, and it just gives me an opportunity to sort of get myself together and do all my emails and that sort of thing. I've been trying to walk to work recently. I mean, I'm very lazy. So I get the bus, which means in the morning I get to experience my bus nemesis.
Well, we've heard about her.
I know.
Yeah, tell us
I think everyone should have a bus nemesis, to be honest. I mean, essentially what it is that she tries to get on the bus before everyone else and I try and stop her. And that's essentially what it is. It's been going on for a long time. I don't think she knows that's who she is.
It would
to
be
me.
a bit creepy if she did know that.
I mean, for all I know, I'm her bus nemesis, which I think is be quite amazing, to be honest. So that sort of amuses me on the way to work in the morning. And so I get in and sort of crack on with all of my emails and getting stuff done. It gives me a good opportunity to sort of settle in, I think, before everyone else arrives and get a lot of the other stuff done around proofing and everything. Okay,
so last year, Bright went through quite a big rebrand. You were a massive part of that, and I just wanted to have a bit of a chat with you really about, the cause of the initial rebrand and then why you then decided to continue to develop it afterwards.
Yeah, that rebrand was a really big deal, I think, for us as a business. So I think, as I mentioned before, we used to be called Bright Interactive because we were a software company in Brighton, but we developed this product called Asset Bank, which started to take over more of the brand. So our brand sort of started to become Asset Bank rather than Bright Interactive. And so we went through this initial rebrand. It was more than just a colour scheme, logo situation. It was reviewing our entire brand hierarchy. Our name, was Bright Interactive right? Did that really represent who we were now? Should we be looking at something else? We did go through quite an extensive naming exercise, which I'll be honest, I don't think I'd advise anyone to do unless you really have to.
It's always the hardest part, isn't it?
So hard. It really is.
Everything's taken.
Everything is taken. And then you start just choosing weird words that you think are going to work for you. And so we went through a number of those. We tried really hard, but essentially we ended up settling on Bright again after that. So we did a bit of a full circle because we realised actually it really represented who we were, and it works with Brighton, obviously. So we did that. We initially worked with an agency in Australia, actually, to do the project. It was a contact of our CMO. And so we went through that particular project. It was a really good thing to do. They were a big agency and we managed to get from them everything that we wanted in terms of looking at a real introspective. So going back to who are Bright as a company, like who we are the brand, what do we do, what makes us different from everyone else, focusing on brand values. It was all of that sort of stuff was incredibly important. But then we sort of went on to do the visuals part of it. And I think we spent so long doing the other part. The brand visuals weren't as important. Not saying they weren't important, but maybe overshadowed by the other stuff we'd done.
Which is quite interesting, because quite often when people think about a rebrand, they see it more as a new logo or, you know, a new name and just some visuals. So you spent a lot of time on the beginning part and maybe not so much on the actual visual side of it.
I definitely agree with that. I think it's so important though. Like you can't go through a rebrand without doing the introspection, I think, because you end up with a hollow brand. It doesn't really mean anything to you. So they were amazing in terms of getting us to a point where we had clear brand values, you had a vision and a mission, and they weren't just things that we'd come up with, you know, out of the blue, or they were things that we were already doing every day, but they just really helped us to articulate that, which I thought was brilliant. But yes, when we came through the other side, I was really aware when I was sort of looking at our brand values, we weren't able to visually articulate them. And I just felt there was something missing within that sort of process, like the sort of the thread that holds it all together. When I looked at our visuals, it just wasn't there, which is the reason I ended up going through a sort of an iterative process, I suppose, and going on to a phase 2. And I think that's very important anyway. I think brands should always evolve. It is an iterative process. You can't just go through like a brand launch and go, hurrah, it's all done.
And it's quite a brave thing to point out, isn't it, when you've done all of the initial work on the rebrand and then to actually come to a decision that maybe you didn't do everything in that phase and you do need that phase 2. So I think it's quite a brave decision to bring that up. Were you supported within the company?
Yes, I definitely was. I think once we'd launched, because obviously the project involved launching a new website, so once we got through that part, our mission, I think, with the rebrand, was to have a brand that worked for us and also one that we were proud of. And the brand was definitely working for us. You know, we could tell by the website traffic that we were getting, everything, you know, a lot of the feedback, actually, things were working very well for us. But I wasn't really convinced internally that everyone was as proud of the brand as I wanted them to be. So when I put the idea out there that I wanted to revisit, you know, our brand visuals, I had a lot of support from our director, Martin, and also, you know, the designers in the teams, our marketing teams and our sales team as well. So everyone that has sort of been involved in parts through the original rebrand were definitely on board with it and excited about going on to a second rebrand project. Well, brand involvement, I'm going to call it a rebrand.
When you embark on, you know, such a massive process like a rebrand, it's really tricky maybe to find the right people to work with. So how did you find someone or some people that are going to fit with your company ethos, and how did you tackle the research phase of this? So
certainly for the second rebrand part of it, so the new sort of brand visuals evolvement, I suppose I'm going to call it, that was a slightly different process to the original one that we went through, where we were sort of looking for an agency. And actually that contact again came from our CMO Angela, who actually worked with this agency before, this guy in Australia. So for her that was a very good partnership, and so she'd actually done, funnily enough, a similar thing that I did in the second round. I always think that connections are very important throughout your entire career, and I think I'm not saying that everyone has to be on LinkedIn all the time and connecting with people and constantly involved in conversations, but I think whenever you work somewhere, it's important to try and keep in touch with those people. If you meet people at events, it's a good idea to keep in touch. And I'd actually met Tom Leach, that had spoken to me on a previous rebranding project somewhere else. He just contacted me on LinkedIn out of the blue to say that he'd seen our rebrand, thought it looked great, and wanted to let me know that he was moving to Brighton and he was setting up his own agency. So for me, it's always important, I think, to take those opportunities when people get in touch with you to see if there's anything there. There might be some kind of working opportunity. There might not be. Stars aligned, yeah, absolutely. And with Tom, it was really easy. We sort of just met for a coffee and I chatted about some of the design things that I thought I wanted doing. And I wasn't even really thinking at this point about the brand visuals project. I was just thinking about some design work that I thought I might need to doing, you know, some ebook design. And then the more we talked, the more I realised actually this might be a really good fit, and he understood what we were trying to achieve. So yeah, that's how that works. So it was quite serendipitous in a way. I suppose you could call it that, but actually it's just about building good connections and contacts.
So a note to any small businesses or freelancers is to always, you know, keep in contact with those big companies, and for everyone just to add everyone on LinkedIn.
Yeah, exactly.
You never know when someone might need you or just remember you.
Don't burn those bridges when you go. You know, it's always a good idea to sort of, to keep in touch with people, I think. So yeah, it's definitely a helpful thing, but it's a little bit like how we started working with you, Emma, I think is, you know, I knew somebody from...
I just stalked you.
You just stalked me. Oh my God, you're my bus nemesis. From another contact that I knew and, you know, put me in touch with you, and then that's sort of how that came about. So I think just never undervalue or underestimate, I suppose, the value of making connections with people. Yeah, absolutely.
I probably know you as quite a creative person. I feel like you come across like that. Do you consider yourself a creative person? And I suppose the question is, you know, when you were chatting to Tom Leach and you had a vision in your head about how you wanted the brand to evolve visually, how easy was it for you to actually get that across to him And, you know, what kind of tools did you use to do that?
I do consider myself to be a creative person. Finally, my fine art textiles degree from Norwich has...
We always knew that would come in handy.
It's come back, and it's been... Finally, I'm able to use it. It's a weird one. I think, when you do an art degree years and years ago, and then I found myself working in sales and any other job, that wasn't artistic in any way, I suppose. Over the years, I've tried to find myself or carve a bit of a career where I can be more creative and get involved in those things. So certainly when I worked at a digital agency previously, I was able to get more involved in, the creative side of things. And then coming here, working in marketing, certainly has really helped with that. So when it comes to working with designers, I feel like I've got quite a good eye for, what I think works and what doesn't work. And even if it's just something that doesn't really resonate with me, I might not be able to find the solution. It's not my job to find the solution, but I need to be able to articulate it in a way that I can communicate to a designer that there's something off. So I found it quite easy to work with Tom on that. And this whole project for me wasn't my vision. It wasn't my singular vision about what I thought we should do. That's why I got other stakeholders involved in the process to make sure that we could do something together. But I was able to articulate their feedback when we were getting rounds of feedback with Tom. I was able to understand what they were trying to say and then convey it in a way to him that made a lot of sense. So I do a lot of translation in part of my job anyway. And I used to do that with client services and translating technical stuff over to customers and back again. So I think, that translatory role is probably quite helpful.
The communication was easy then in that sense.
It was, definitely. And it's just a pleasure to work with, to be honest. He came up with 4 concepts originally after I provided him with our brand values and, all the work we'd already done with the other agency. And he was able to take that and then make that into something amazing and 4 brilliant concepts, which, to be honest, we all loved. And we just had to work out which direction to go in or which concepts to merge together. And it was actually a really smooth process.
So in your seasoned opinion, what are the
Makes you sound really old.
Your very seasoned opinion. What are the main things you would say are important to consider before starting or as part of a rebrand?
Well, building your dream team. So do not underestimate the power of the dream team. So that's agreeing your stakeholders early on. It's really important, I think, with any project like this, that if you are trying to rebrand by committee, it's going to flop. It's just not going to work. Everyone has very different opinions. It's all very subjective. It's just not helpful. It's actually quite exhausting. But similarly, if you're trying to just go it along with a singular vision, that's also not really going to have a good chance of success because no one's really going to buy into the concept. So once it's launched, you've not brought anyone on the journey with you.
And one person isn't, representative of the whole company. And
no,
that's
exactly.
also a lot of weight on that person's shoulders. So you need to bring in the support, I suppose.
Yeah. Exactly. I think identifying your stakeholders, so pick somebody from maybe each team or I don't know, however you're set up as a business, but I chose someone from else in our marketing team, someone from our sales team, one of our UI designers, another developer. Yeah, and that sort of worked really well. I knew that I had a core selection of people and then I would bring them in at the right stages of the project. So for every meeting that we had with Tom to go through our design work, we'd sit down, we'd go through the review process together, we'd look at the designs. They would wait to give their feedback to me afterwards and I would collate that into a helpful way. And I kept them involved all the way through.
Having that one consistent person delivering feedback is way easier, isn't it? Otherwise, if you have lots of different voices to the designer or whoever's working on it, it's too much.
Oh, it would have been really, really confusing, I think, if I just said, or even everyone just tell him now what you think. It just would have been really it's making me feel really anxious thinking about it, to be honest.
Sweaty palms.
So, I think the fact that I was able to be almost like the conduit for that was great. And I think they actually liked that because it meant they weren't brought into too many meetings. It's the other thing as well about being a stakeholder sometimes is there's a fear that you're going to be in every meeting and you're going to be, you're going to be really heavily into the project.
Taken away from your own day-to-day job. Exactly.
Now, that wasn't my role. Well, that wasn't what I wanted to create anyway. I wanted to make sure that they were brought in, they felt on board with everything that was going on. They felt they'd been heard, which I'll be honest, probably earlier on I didn't think maybe they were in the first rebrand. So I wanted to make sure they were definitely heard because they were going to be and are my advocates of this whole project. So, when we're talking about it in the office now, I know that they're behind it. And that's the best thing for me is to see that they're excited about it, as excited as I am. So that's one of the things I think. Well, I think another one again is the introspection. I mentioned it earlier, but going back to basics and really understanding who you are as a brand and that you want to come out with more than just a really cool logo. and a new colour scheme and some new fonts, maybe some icons. I think you need to do things like, outline your target personas, understand who your audience really are and who your brand really resonates with, focus on what makes you unique.
And I suppose as a marketer, that sort of came a bit more easily to you, that stage, because that's what you're doing in a lot of ways for your kind of day-to-day job.
Yeah, so all of our content, again, is focused on specific personas. That's how we do a lot of our marketing. And we, even on the website, we're making sure we channel certain personas into areas of the website based on their,
so
buyer
you knew
journey.
Who to appeal to, basically.
Exactly, yeah. But it's difficult because our industry of DAM or digital asset management is actually quite a crowded space. And so what's trying to make you different in that space, everyone's saying the same thing. So for us it was, and trying to make that differentiator, and ours is definitely our people, and we know that. And so that's where a lot of the work we've done here is about people. But yeah, so I would say things like your mission, vision, values, doing some really extensive work around that is incredibly important, because that is going to carry you through once you've got those pillars or that sort of solid foundation. Exciting stuff and all the cool stuff around the visuals, I mean, everyone loves that bit. It's fun.
It's the fun creative part.
Gets you make thinking like Nathan Barley, and you can just be in like a weird, do you know what I mean?
Get that fine art degree out.
Yeah, exactly. You can just go to agencies and hang out there. It's really cool, actually. That's one bit I really enjoyed before, is just going to agencies in London and just believing I work there. Yeah, so that would be one of my things. So introspection's a huge one. My final tip, because I don't want to give too many, I'm sure we can write up some more for people if they're interested in reading our blog, would be really clear about the deliverables for the project. Make sure you're going to come out of this with a practical set of things that you can actually use, because I think we started off, originally we got a set of brand guidelines. They look great, but they were 70 pages long. That's a lot of pages to read. No one's reading that.
No one's reading that at night, are
no
they?
One's reading it.
Go to bed?
No one's reading it. And also, when you're expecting people to read it, they can feel really quite intimidating, really restrictive. And actually, I felt that those guidelines potentially restricted us rather than inspired people to use them. People were terrified about doing something wrong. So they were sort of going off piste and trying their own stuff. And I was like, this isn't working. So brand guidelines are helpful, but make sure they're inspiring, not restrictive. But also we didn't really come out with a lot of stuff, actual tangible stuff to use, photography.
Helpful assets, I guess.
Assets, essentially. Yeah, exactly. Creative assets. There was nothing really there. So take the time to sit down and work out real life examples about the things that you need. What do you do in your day? What will you potentially need designed? It might be a really long list, but then you can just prioritise the things that are really important to you. I end up going through things like, email marketing, email designs, do I need branding for that sort of stuff? Do we need icons, ebooks? There are all these different bits of content that we create. What am I going to get? And so that would be, a big tip, I think.
So I guess being realistic about how you're going to use your brand in your day job and in each role.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously because of budget's quite a big part of that. So don't waste all your budget having lots of guidelines made. Get the budget spent in the ways that are going to really help you. If there's loads of stuff, then just prioritise it. You can iterate on it later. Just get the top things that you think are going to make the most difference to you in the short term, and then just keep getting more budget further down the line if you can.
And where do you store your assets?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think you'll find they're in our staff asset bank.
Excellent answer. I want the juice, basically. So hindsight is a beautiful thing, and you've shared what you would advise people to do if they're embarking on a rebrand, but are there any things that you feel that people could avoid, or any pitfalls that you found made the journey a bit harder for you and you could warn people against?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I'm just thinking about going back in time, and you're right, hindsight is a brilliant thing, and I think there's quite a lot of stuff I've probably covered already about stuff that I think we probably could have done better. But like I say before, I think spend more time planning what you need. Take that time. I think we relied on the agency originally to sort of tell us what we needed. It's not their job to do that. They can guide you. You need to take the time to think about your business. They can make suggestions. They can suggest, mugs and tote bags and all sorts of things, and they'll come up with lots of beautiful examples.
But don't be swayed, I suppose,
by it, no.
Away from your, your key deliverables that you need from the project.
Yeah, exactly. Think about your digital marketing team. What do they need? Do they need
probably not mugs?
Yeah, probably not mugs, and probably not tote bags. Their events team possibly do, but web banners, social media posts, application examples about how you're going to get that sort of stuff. So spend some time thinking about that, and then deliver that to your, actually I suppose prioritise it and then deliver it to your branding agency or branding person, whoever you're working with. So that would be one thing. I think we should have done more of that before. And so we've learned from that this time around, and now we've got a real toolkit. So actually, I think the phrase toolkit is what I would use. Make sure you speak to your agency about, I want a toolkit that I can come out of this with. More consistent stakeholder involvement. So this time round, it's been better. I'm going back now to the original rebrand. I don't think we involved our stakeholders consistently because of time constraints a lot of the time. It was a case of, actually, maybe they don't need to be in this meeting, or they don't need to see it. We'll just push on.
And did that make them feel disjointed from the process?
Yes, massively. There were, disconnected people. When the website was launched, it was like, hang on a second, I don't remember seeing that. Keep them involved, because again, they're going to be your advocates when it comes off. It's going to be a great time for them. You want them to be involved. And I wonder if maybe some of that before was because we were anxious about the fact they might be critical, and we were on a bit of a train. We were trying to get things done. We had time constraints, and maybe we worried that their critique might throw off the project. But you've got to allow time for that, and you have to expect it and actually embrace it, welcome it, because you're going to get a better product.
It could be valid points as well,
Exactly. If it's constructive criticism, your outcome at the end is going to be much better. So consistent stakeholder involvement, I think, all the way through. Just plan it and manage them as well, and just say, I need you for these meetings. As we get further down the line and we're getting a little bit closer to, the deliverables point of view, I might not need to involve you, but I will ask you if there's anything else that you need. And so just sort of manage them. So it's a bit more of a funnel shape. You did a lot at the beginning, maybe slightly less at the bottom. So I would say that. And I think probably my final thing would be, and I've said it before anyway, is the guidelines document. Make something that inspires people, a photography guide that's just examples of things they could do. Don't tell them all the photos they can use and they can't use, but set them free to be creative. Otherwise, it's going to be a very boring brand.
So how long is your brand guidelines now?
Oh, that's such a good question, Emma. If only I knew. We're including everything, which is all the application examples. It's probably about 15 to 20 pages.
Okay, so that's hugely reduced from 70.
Reduced. Yes.
Much more visual, I'm assuming.
Exactly that. So it's not, even 20 might sound quite a lot to someone, but there's lots of examples. So individual pages of this is what it looks like on an email, this is what your brand looks like on an ebook. It's that sort of stuff that we've included where people can go through and then go, that's what it should look like. Right.
And I think for a new starter to your business as well, that's hugely important. And you're almost ticking off that kind of new starter, handbook or whatever by creating those brand guidelines. So
exactly.
It has longevity.
Yes. And it includes all of our brand values as well. So all of our brand values have been visualised within the brand guidelines document. So now we're in a great position that we can move on and create our employee handbook, because we now have visuals for those. And I'm hoping to work with someone, a similar project for that too. But I would say they're probably my top tips. And again, I'm sure we can think of some others, but I don't want to bore everyone.
Well, just to let everyone know, we will be featuring all of these tips on the blog as well. So I'm sure we can expand further. And, if you've got any other...
I can talk about the bus nemesis more probably on the blog if you want me to. So,
love that nemesis.
We'll see.
Now you're pretty much at the end of that phase of the rebrand. What are the next steps?
Well, it's still evolving, so I'm still getting all the stuff through. I'm still, built the toolkit, but I'm still building on that. I keep finding things that I think, I could do with that. I could do with that too. We've actually recently gone through a big office refurb project. So that's where our brand now is being really seen. So our senior leadership team really wanted to see the brand in our office environment and our brand values, because we spent so much time developing them. There's no point having a load of brand values that just sit in a drawer that no one's going to look at. I've been thinking about how do we communicate our brand values through the office environment. It's not the 90s. Nobody wants to have their brand values written on the wall, because that's horrendous and you just feel like you're being held hostage by a brand. No one wants that either. You don't want to come to work and sit in a room and feel like you're being shouted at for 5 hours when you've only been there for 5 minutes. It's just horrible. So we've taken our brand values and we've just been very creative and thought about how we can roll out that design. So I'm sure we can share some pictures of those things as well.
Yeah, I think that's what everyone likes to see as well, isn't it? That creative piece and how you did translate all the brand guidelines and all the creative work you did and how that now looks as well.
And we're really proud of it.
There's a lot of pot plants.
There's a lot of pot plants. Yeah, it's really important for us to do that. And we've got some of the graphics and vinyls and things, but again, have been trying to do them quite sensitively. We're really excited. So I think that's where the brand is sort of going. And I just think it's going to evolve. I think we're going to keep doing stuff. I've already had people sort of buying images, on Shutterstock and other places that you can buy images from, I'm sure, that they're choosing images now, which are really good quality, because they've seen the brand guidelines and they just feel like, I get it. I get the feel.
It must be a really nice feeling.
It's a brilliant feeling because, I have had people coming up to me saying, I don't know if I should buy this image. And I just said, all I'm asking you to do, look at the guidelines and how do they make you feel? Do you feel that image is a bright image? If you feel it's an image that works for bright, buy it. What's the worst that's going to happen? You need to be able to free people up to do that sort of stuff. Otherwise, you just end up going back to being really corporate and I don't know, quite unhelpful.
So I know that you obviously you're up in the office by about 7 a.m. So I'm guessing you're not out at 5. So when the clock strikes 3, Vic, what do you do?
Well, I say, 3 o'clock, because I'm usually quite lucky to get out because we have quite nice flexible working. So in the summer is the best time for this because it just means I get to take advantage of Brighton in the afternoon in summer, which is great. I take full advantage, it's quite diplomatic, I take full advantage of city living, I would say. So I meet friends quite a lot after work for drinks and dinner.
Because the office is only a stone's throw from the beach, really.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, it really is. And I'm only 20 minutes from home as well. So it's a perfect thing for me, really. It's just that I live a very nice life, I think. And my husband is only around the corner as well. He works by Brighton Station, so we meet for dinner and things after work. And
Brighton life's the best life.
Brighton life is the best life. Could say something really exciting and really diverse, but I think drinks and dinner is probably it.
So that's all we have time for today. A big thanks to Vic and everyone who tuned in. We've included all these hints and links to rebranding successfully in our post on the Bright blog, which can be found on assetbank.co.uk/blog. We'll be back very soon with more insights from the wonderful world of Bright.